Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Accelerator. Brandon here, your Chief Business Strategist, with a fantastic guest today, Mr. James Geiss, who is an owner and franchisee for zoomroom.com. James, welcome.
Thank you, Brandon. Glad to be here.
All right, we'll cut that off a little soon there. So appreciate you taking the time this evening to speak with me. Talk to me about your background a little bit. I did a little bit of sleuthing on LinkedIn and see you have a very extensive resume, starting all the way back in McDonald's from the early 90s to what you're doing now. So give us the cliff notes of you and how you got to becoming a franchisee of ZoomRoom.
Yeah, absolutely. So pretty much all my life, I've been someone who's been very much interested in customer service and operations management. And so as far back as McDonald's, when I was a teenager, my first job, I really grew through that. I loved leading people and just making a difference. That's one thing about whether it's retail or restaurants, you can kind of like end the day and go, wow, I really made a difference. People got great food or people got great service. They got the thing they were looking for. So that's pretty much what you see in my resume, kind of going way back to the 1990s. I'm 50 now, so I've got quite a few jobs underneath my belt. But that's what you see kind of as in my resume. So manager at McDonald's. I went to University of Michigan for my undergrad work. I specialized in foreign languages. So I spent about 2 years of my life living abroad, a year in Germany, 6 months in Belgium, 6 months in Moscow, Russia. And when I finished school, I realized, maybe I really don't want to work in languages. And so kind of kept on working in restaurants and retail. I worked for a bank for a while, and then I went and got my master's degree from Michigan State University. And that's sort of what kind of got me on the projectile that I'm on right now. So I worked for Steak and Shake for about 8 years, from single unit to multi-unit to director of operations. I was the youngest director of operations in Steak and Shake history. I had 50 restaurants, kind of up and down the Midwest, from Cincinnati, Ohio, down to Huntsville, Alabama. Back in 2008, when the whole economy was going south, I also went south. I was recruited by Checkers Drive-In Restaurants and came here to Central Florida and managed about 48 restaurants, Central Florida, the Gulf Coast. But eventually, everything caught up with them as well. So I got downsized from there, went to work for Public Storage Company, started as district manager here locally in Orlando, and then ran the Tampa region for a little while. Then went to Apple, got to do lots of cool stuff with them, managed iPhone 5S and 6 launch at Florida Mall. Then went to Target, and then decided I really wanted to get into dogs. That was my long love. I loved having dogs my whole life, and so I was a district manager for a boutique kind of store / salon / veterinarian / grooming salon. And then after that, became a franchisee for ZoomRoom dog training. So I have 2 dog training facilities now, one in Winter Park and one in Longwood. And we've been in business for 4 years in a couple weeks.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. So what drew you to the ZoomRoom concept specifically? I know you just mentioned there that you kind of want to get into animals out of the food service business. What was that aha moment when you thought, this is it, this is my jam?
Yeah, it was a little bit as I kind of got a little bit older. I had done a lot of jobs where I worked for somebody else and helped someone else make money and fulfill their dream. I worked for some small mom and pop organizations as well as some big ones. But when it came down, I got downsized from the last job that I had with the vet center. And I was like, you know what? I really want to work with dogs, but I don't want to work in dog retail because Amazon's going to eat their lunch. I don't want to necessarily work in grooming because, that's much like finding someone to cut your hair. Like, you follow that person around. So if a groomer ever leaves, like, you've got to restart your business. And veterinary care is just very expensive, whether it's hiring the right vet or having the right equipment. So I actually found an advertisement for ZoomRoom dog training. They were looking for franchisees back in 2019. I saw a Facebook ad and I filled out the information. I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. they called me right away, and I successfully dodged their call for about a month. Like every day they were calling me and texting me. They were sending me smoke signals. I'm like, I really wasn't that serious, right? It's fine. But finally, I talked to Catherine Ollinger, who was the director of franchising at that time. And from there, it went really quick. It was a great conversation with her. The next week, I had a discovery call with our validation call with John and Christy House, who are the owners of Virginia Beach. And like the next week or the week after, I flew out to California and met with the CEO, Mark Van Wy, and I really enjoyed the experience I had there. So then I was putting all my pieces together. This was February 17th, 2020. So kind of put all my eggs in that basket. And then 3 weeks later, COVID hit. And then it all sort of shifted underneath me, but we still made it happen.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that, that part of the journey, because a lot of things happened during that time. But you're thriving now. You've made it past that, that hump, so to speak. Most businesses don't tend to succeed, after the first year. So you've definitely made that, and probably the toughest part of the economy ever. But as you mentioned, you own a couple of locations. So what does a typical day look like for you in managing those locations?
So I feel very lucky with having the 2 stores. I actually have 8 people who work for me. And so they do the day-to-day operations. So client acquisition, training the dogs. I have a local store marketing person. So like we were out at Barktoberfest yesterday, and the day before we were at Franklin's Friends Halloween up at Crane's Roost. So the day-to-day aspect, I feel very lucky. When I first opened Winter Park, I taught every single class for 9 months. I was like, 9 to 5, Saturday and Sunday. I taught thousands of dogs, I think, in the first couple of years that I was open, me personally. But as the business grew and we got more popular, I opened the secondary locations. I have people who work for me that kind of do all that very important work. And so now I'm trying to shift from working in the business to working on the business. So doing things like this, doing amazing podcasts with you, Brandon, building relationships with my peers. I'm going to South Tampa tomorrow to help one of my peers who's struggling a little bit in that location. I do my own bookkeeping, believe it or not. I'd like to have the hands-on of the numbers and kind of know where I'm at, which I think is really important. I run my own marketing through Facebook and Meta and Google. I always tell people, like, it's my job to make the phone ring, and then it's my team's job to sort of like pick up that relay from me to make sure the client has a great experience. It continues to come back year over year. We've got clients that have been with us since opening day, believe it or not. Almost 4 years later, they're still training with us, having a great time.
Well, yeah, it's definitely key to have that structure in place. And, most owners, even of non-franchise business, even in their own business, they try to wear all the hats and do everything. And you just can't do it. It definitely takes a team to be specialized in handling the day-to-day. And I do find it interesting that you are handling all the marketing and everything by yourself. I know you have a ton of retail experience, managerial experience, but you don't have a key dedicated person kind of handling that. And you're just guiding it, but you're running all the ads and doing all the Facebook posts.
Yes. Well, that my new local store marketing person, I'm sort of handing some of that off to her. So her job is to find in-person events for us to, be part of, whether it's like Bark and Brew and Oktoberfest, all those different, fun dog events, or just might be just a regular event. I know for Halloween, she's going to an apartment complex and doing a costume contest. But she will also be doing kind of the, I guess, organic Facebook posts where I am the one who's generating the campaigns. So I run about 4 to 6 campaign windows a year. And so for me, it's like, okay, I spend a day putting those things together and then kind of setting them up in the Meta Business Manager and in Google. So it's not too much difficulty with that. It kind of runs on its own. AI, I think, is a good thing for a lot of reasons. But return on ad spend for us is about 10 times what I put in. So we're doing okay.
Yeah, I would say a 10x return on your ad spend is
Well, that's what
absolutely
Meta
phenomenal.
says.
Yeah.
That's what Meta says. Like, Meta's like, the coworker takes credit for everything you do, whether or not they actually did it. So, but yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with that number.
Well, I think anybody would really.
Yeah.
So for those who may not know, what makes Zoom Room unique as far as a dog training and retail concept?
Yeah, no, great question. So first of all, we're a positive reinforcement dog training facility, but our motto is we don't train dogs, we train the people who love them. Because really what we find is that in most cases, dogs are making the best decisions they possibly can, but they may be misinterpreting the things that you're asking them to do. So for example, if a dog jumps on you and you say, Fido, stop down, no, don't jump on me. The dog goes, cool. Every time I jump on Brandon, he talks to me, right? So I want to keep on jumping on Brandon, right? Or the dog's barking out the window because the Amazon person came and dropped off a package, and you're like, Fido, stop it, be quiet, right? Stop barking. And Fido goes, cool, I'm barking and the human's barking. And guess what? The Amazon guy didn't break in. He left. We scared him away. We're a great team, right? So barking gets rewarded. So that's a big part of where our focus starts. But what makes Zoom really different is a couple things. One is I don't consider ourselves an obedience facility. We're an enrichment facility. Obedience is kind of the basic thing that you have to know how to do before you can do all the fun stuff. We do agility, we do rally, we do scent, and we do tricks. We do puppy preschool. So as early as 8 weeks old, we're teaching puppies how to play with each other and interact with each other and not resource guard their humans. So that's a really big part of like, we don't, naturally people think of dog training as about 6 or 12 classes. I have probably 30 clients I can think off the top of my head that have taken more than 100 classes with us. And that's because they're doing all those enrichment activities and having a great relationship with their dog. So that's the first thing is it's kind of like what we do, no one else really does out there. The second thing that's really critical for us is the flexibility that we provide. So we don't graduate dogs based on what they can, how many classes they've taken. We graduate dogs based on what they can do. So all of our classes have behaviors that we're looking at. And whether it took your dog 2 classes or 6 classes to learn all those behaviors, they graduate when they're ready. And then finally, we have a very flexible program. So it's most dog training facilities like, okay, you're coming every Saturday at 10 a.m., be there or be square. You miss a week because you're sick or you're out of town or whatever. I guess you don't learn how to sit that week or whatever it might be. But for us, you buy a set of classes and you use those as credits to hold your spot in class. And as your dog moves forward through our program, those classes roll forward as well. So we could sell classes in a monthly subscription. We sell classes in bigger passes that you can share between multiple dogs. So I really tell people that we're curated, we're a flexible program that essentially is going to help you achieve your goals, whatever it may be.
Very nice. And there's one key thing in there that I heard that I liked a lot: the fact that you have a monthly subscription program tied to your business. And as we all know, if you don't have that reoccurring revenue, coming in, it's very difficult to, have predictable income and be able to, manage your business effectively. And I know everybody's probably all subscriptioned out, but it is probably one of the best business models out there, which is why everybody is doing it right now.
Yeah.
So have there been any surprises about the business that you didn't expect, going in?
No, I mean, I have a lot of retail and restaurant experience that sort of prepared me for some of those things like customer service issues. I guess the thing that was kind of surprising for me was how often the power goes out when there's hurricanes. I'm from Michigan, right? And so I didn't come down here until 2008. I don't think we had a hurricane for like 10 years while I was down here. And then now we're having back-to-back hurricanes. And, we had to close for a couple of days with this hurricane with Milton. I think we were closed for 4 days because we didn't have enough power. Some of those like Scud missiles that sort of come flying at you, you're like, well, like that's really doesn't have anything to do with my business, but I've really got to watch out for that. But I would say the thing that really took me most by surprise, and in hindsight, I really kicked myself because I should know better, because I'm a businessman and I study these sorts of things. But Winter Park was very successful and very profitable for the first several years. to such a degree back in 2022, I was absentee pretty much the whole year because I was diagnosed with cancer. And I
Oh man.
spent the whole year either being really sick because I hadn't been diagnosed yet, or then I was actually in treatment and the treatment was really awful. Then I came out of treatment and then I got shingles and then I got COVID. So pretty much all of 2022, I was out of pocket, but I had a really great staff and we were up 20% in sales, even though I was working like 1 hour a week because I couldn't do any more. And so we enter 2023. It's like the best couple of months ever. And I'm like, cool, I'm getting ready to open this new store. Winter Park is cranking. So I'm going to take a little bit more price. I think I can do that. And not realizing, one, I'm about to increase supply. So that's not a good time to increase your prices. Increasing your prices decreases demand. And it's the first summer post-COVID restrictions, right? That was the summer of 2023 where everyone's like, woo, we get to travel again. And so I just saw my business really kind of crater for most of the like back half of 2023. And so starting in 2024, it's really just been a lot of rebuilding. So I would say anything that sort of surprised me was one, my own stupidity surprised me, right? That I just didn't necessarily think. I just got a little cocky, right? And I was like, oh, my business is doing really well. Like I'm offering a great service. I'm underpriced, like compared to other Zoom rooms. I'm probably the most, I guess, reasonable price. I rolled out the monthly subscription. I really felt that I was going to increase demand. And I think really people just had other things that they wanted to do, come last summer and even into the fall. We started to kind of recover at the end of 2023. And then 2024 has kind of been a steady increase to the point that I'm getting close to my 2022 numbers again. But 2023 was pretty brutal. So, and I think that's the same for a lot of businesses. It's just like the end of 2023 was tough.
Yeah, I mean this whole year itself has been a complete roller coaster. During the day I'm in manufacturing space, and
Yeah.
there's very little happening in the way of production. And we're seeing it in the media and the news now that we have some of the best economic deals going on right now. But I can say firsthand experience that there's a lot of shadow in that whole economic policy there on what's actually working and what actually isn't. Sure, there may be some sectors up, such as tech, but when it comes to retail and manufacturing, people aren't buying anything, so nothing is getting made. And even though people still spend a ton of money on their pets, I mean that's an industry that very rarely sees anything related to recession because people love their pets. Sometimes people don't think dog training is important, but
yeah, well, and that's a great point, Brendan. When you think about what are the different sectors of support a dog, right? It's grooming is non-negotiable. Vet service is pretty much non-negotiable. Pet food is pretty much non-negotiable, but training, I might be able to watch a YouTube video, or I might be able to like have a friend who has who knows how to train dog, do those things for me. And so, the pet sector in general is recession proof, but there are, I would call it's like the leadership crucible, right? Like there's always something out there that's going to crush you. And whether it's daycare kind of slumped when people were working from home. I don't need daycare. People are working from home, or training is like, oh, like money's a little tight. And that's why I rolled out the monthly subscription. For us, it's $99. You get 3 classes a month. And so it's a pretty reasonable deal from dog training perspective. But also it's very easy to budget. $99.
So how are you able to manage your locations consistently? Especially going through everything that you went through in the past couple of years.
So I'm a big fan of just making sure that I hire the right people and I pay them well. So if you were to go on the Glassdoor or something like that, that would tell you like how much the average dog trainer makes. The average dog trainer makes about $12, $14 an hour. My team makes anywhere between $20 and $24. So what I tell people who come to work for me, I'm like, well, sure, there's no manager per se in my stores. I'm the manager. Everyone else is here, but I expect them to manage themselves. I expect them to feel busy. And even right before our call, I was sitting down going over with one of my new team members, like these are the 15 behaviors that I look for. So there's, essentially administrative excellence, there's sales of the service, and there's teaching and training. and each one of those buckets has 5 behaviors. And that was just me kind of walking my new employees through, like, these are the things that I'm looking for. I can't be in both stores 80 hours a week. I want to have a life too. I want to work 40, 50 hours a week, and
Right.
across 2 locations. So it really comes down to, I tell my team, there's a couple filters. Whenever you're presented with something you don't know how to handle it, is one is you want to make my life easier, not harder, right? And so make sure you're making good decisions that won't require a lot of cleanup from me, but you think it's the right thing to do. And second is get the money to the bank, right? Is that if you have an opportunity to help a client and make a sale, like, let's do that and we'll figure everything out behind it. And the third thing is I really ask my team to manage themselves, make good decisions, challenge themselves. And when they don't know the answer, that they reach out to each other. And so one that really builds, I think, a good interconnectivity between my team, like they call each other at the different stores, and having this kind of challenge with a client's dog, like they're doing X, Y, or Z. But I would say the last part of it would be that I hired the right people, and then we really are passionate about like ongoing continuing knowledge. So dog training is actually an unregulated business, meaning, or an industry, which means that there are no required certifications, training, or knowledge in order to train dogs. So Brandon, you today could go up after we get off the phone or off the podcast, you'd be able to create, Brandon's dog training, and you'd be able to start a business, and people could start using you to train their dogs without really having any kind of knowledge or certification. One of the things I'm very passionate about is like the independent certifications that we can get. So I
Nice.
have 4 team members that are certified to the American Kennel Club to do canine good system evaluations, star puppy, etc. So that's a fairly difficult one to get. And then there's actually a higher level certification that's from the Council of Certified Professional Dog Trainers, so the TPTPKA exam, and 4 of my trainers, including myself, have that certification. There's only 25 people in all of Orlando that have that certification, and 4 of us have it at my business. So that's how you can kind of really manage the business, is you hire great people who make great decisions that can work independently and give great customers.
Yeah, that does sound absolutely amazing. The fact that you can, take a little bit of a step back and know that your team is able to run the ship for you,
Yeah.
and you give them that autonomy a little bit to, essentially manage their own business, because
Yeah.
your trainers are the forefront of your business and interacting with the customers. So they obviously have a sense of community
Mhm.
there with your clients. So how are you encouraging that, across, your 2 locations there?
The community, like with my clientele, the community within my team. I'm sorry, just want to make sure I
Oh,
answer the
so,
right
yeah, I'm
question.
sorry, with the clientele, emphasizing that community building. I know you mentioned that you were like going out into the community for like marketing
Mhm.
purposes, but are you doing it for more than just marketing?
Oh, absolutely. So that's why I hired this person to be, and her title is Community Development Manager, or Specialist, I should say, Community Development Specialist. And so her job, beyond like the marketing and stuff with Facebook and what have you, is building relationships with key rescue organizations. And we're actually getting ready to start a program to work with the rescues and say, okay, take your most difficult adoptable dog and bring them to Zoom, and let's have a trainer work with them for free, right? To kind of see if we can work through some of those behaviors, but also let's have some fun. Let's do some agility or scent, take some videos of that. And then you can post those on your own Facebook or your own website, so people can see like, hey, here's this dog. And they're a great dog, right? They just have had maybe a bad hand dealt to them. And
Mhm.
Zoomer wants to be a part of that. I am very involved with shelters, so both Orange County Animal Services and Seminole County Animal Services. Um, a couple times a year will go and work with their volunteers to teach them how to work with the dogs they have under their care, to do some positive reinforcement dog training, really, which is answering, to their name, coming when called, laying down. Because what I talk to these rescues about is, imagine if we could just shorten the average stay of a dog by about 20 or 30% in your facility. And what if through training that we can keep more families together, so that dogs are less often returned to the shelter or the rescue that they're gotten from because the person is struggling, or just maybe a person, adopts a dog or buys one from a breeder and they have difficulty handling that dog and so they end up in a rescue. Imagine if we can just make some of those incremental changes, what that will do to the overpopulation that we have in the shelters. So that's something I'm very passionate about. That's why I built this business, not only because I love dogs, but because I want to keep families together and I want to keep dogs out of the shelter system. I've had 4 dogs. All of them have been rescued from shelters. And each one has been amazing in their own right. Each has had their own difficulties. But they've all just enriched my life so much. And I want other people to have that experience too.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of rescue dogs and actually getting one as opposed to getting one from a breeder. There's nothing wrong with a purebred dog.
Yep.
I have a pandemic dog myself. Got him
Yeah.
as a pup, and he can be a little irritating at times, but push comes to shove. I love that dog to death,
Absolutely.
and I won't hate to say I hate it, but being 40 and growing up, I had pets and dogs, things like that. They eventually pass on, and I'm not looking forward to that day. Even though I know I have some years
Yeah.
to go with that. He's only a couple years old now, but
Yeah.
I think way too far in the future when it comes to that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
it's really it's a tough decision, right? But what I tell people that are going through the situation, of losing a pet is the way that you can honor that dog's life is by rescuing another one. And so I think people should take the right amount of time to mourn and grieve. And like, I'm not telling anyone to rush out to get another dog, but it pains my heart when people say like, oh, I don't think I can get another dog. I lost my last one and it was so awful for me. I can definitely empathize with that. But there's dogs out there that need us. And I think, I always think that my dog Goose reminds me so much of my dog Bear, both physically, personality wise. I don't know if you believe in reincarnation, but I'm just like, wow, these dogs are so similar. Dogs choose us. I can probably go through all my different dogs. And when I first got Sluggo, when I was 20, I think I was like 28, I went to the Chicago Pound and he was pawing at me through the grate. He didn't do that for anybody else, right? Sluggo picked me. Or I think about my current dog, Duck. I went to Orange County Animal Services. I was looking for another black dog because those are the dogs that really stay in the shelters the most. They're heavily euthanized. People are scared of black dogs for whatever reason. And so we took him outside so he can, sniff around and pee. And so I sat down on like Indian style, like, crisscross applesauce on the ground. And after he was done peeing, he walked over and he laid down and he put his head on my lap. And it was like, okay, how can I not save this dog, right? And so I'm a big believer that, dogs pick us for a reason. And, I'm thankful for every dog relationship I've had in my life.
Absolutely. So, heard it here. If you're looking for a dog, go out and rescue one.
Exactly.
So, we just talked about community building and getting out into the in the community there to get the clients that you need to run the business. So after you've helped who you needed to help, and how does the feedback that you receive shape your strategy when it comes to operations across your locations?
So, I mean, if I'm thinking about just the operations in general that I have in the stores, one of our I wouldn't say pain point, but what I've got to often look at is, can my clients attend the classes that they want to attend using the credit that they've purchased? So thinking back when I first opened Winter Park, we really only trained about 5 days a week. I trained all those different days. And one of the reasons why I opened Longwood was because I was really feeling capacity pressure. So a little bit different about like a dog training facility than maybe a Planet Fitness is like, I could only fit 6 or 8 dogs in the gym at a time, right? And so I only have these peak hours. So one thing that I think was really important was having that open line of communication with my clients to say, hey, like, we want to take this class, but it's full. You need to offer different, additional iterations of that same class. And so that's how we grow from, only offering a certain class 3 times a week to now 5 times a week. I have a couple of classes I offer twice in one day. I offer one in the morning and once in the afternoon, because there should never be a time when a client says to me, James, I want to come to class, but there's no class for me to take. That's the biggest sort of like 5-alarm fire that I can think of when it comes to my business. And so that feedback is very much open and accepted. But in general, I get feedback just like anybody else does. I come to my store, I talk to clients and, see how they're doing. And of course, social media and people's comments and Google reviews. I'm very lucky. I think both my stores are a really high 4.9 something. I think at Winter Park, I'm like 150 5-star reviews and like 3-star reviews. And those are the people that, positive reinforcement dog training isn't for everybody. You got to have patience and you got to work at it, right? If dog training was easy, I wouldn't have 8 trainers who work for me in 2 facilities. I always tell people I'd have a car that said James's dog training, and I would come to your house, Brandon, and say, do this, 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 and this, and give me $100, and off I go. Dog training was easy. You guys wouldn't, people wouldn't need us.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the reviews taken care of, obviously you're responding to all of them and keeping the positive reputation out there. Do you have any other additional go-to bread and butter marketing tactics or strategies that have been, especially effective for growing those 2 locations?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one is the awareness that people like to train their dog with their friends. So we have a referral program that I'm pretty proud of, that if someone refers their friend to us, they get some free classes, which is, hey, thank you for, because when you give a referral, you give a little bit of your own reputation away, right? And so you want to make sure that that's done well. So I really value those referrals. And so I actually double the amount that Zoom recommends. Zoom recommends you get 1 free class for giving a referral. I actually give 2 because, like I said, there's nothing more flattering and more important than the relationship that I can have with somebody. And if they're referring me to their friends, that's super important. The other part, for better or for worse with dog training and the way that we do it, like we sell, for example, 8 classes in 12 weeks or, 24 classes in 8 months. So the way that our program is set up, it's flexible where you can miss a certain number of weeks without missing any kind of content. But we also know that life sometimes gets in the way and people's classes may expire. One of the things that I think is really important is giving people the opportunity to continue to take classes. So I call it class amnesty. So if a client were to, like, their class expired because they got busy or something else, when they buy their new classes, I would just add on those expired classes to give them kind of everything that they paid for. For me, I want people to come and train their dog, and I will do everything I can to make sure that happens, because that's what supports my base philosophy that drives everything I do, which is keeping families together, keeping dogs out of the shelter system, and a well-trained dog does not go back to the shelter.
Very nice. And I love the philosophy there. It's give, and that honestly is the first part of selling. And I know you're not out there directly to, blatantly sell your services out there, but essentially, that's what it's all about. It's giving to the point to where you can, and you get them hooked, and they continue to buy and love the community that you are offering them.
Yeah.
So if you could offer one piece of advice to someone that's considering a franchise, whether it's Zoom Room or any other franchise, because you've worked in quite a few, especially in the restaurant industry there, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's no franchise that's perfect, right? Every franchise has pros and cons. One, you want to make sure that you're passionate about the business, because when you're starting a franchise, you're going to be working a lot, and it's going to live and die based on the amount of work that you put into it, how much you love to have for it. But you also want to make sure that your love of the concept doesn't cloud your ability to recognize the financial profitability that can come from it, right? No one wants to sink lots of money into a franchise that eventually fails. I think, Brandon, you were talking about a little bit earlier, is that a lot of businesses fail within the first year. I know I have my eye on that 5-year line, because I know 5 years is also a big hurdle for franchise organizations or business in general. And so to kind of bring that all together, it just, do your due diligence around the existing operators. They of course will likely have some sort of facilitation through like the getting to know us stream. I used to be a big part of that at CRM, where we went from, Winter Park was store number 9, and I think now we have 77 stores. So in 3 years, we went from 9 stores to 77 stores. And a lot of those people came through me. They visited my store while they were in the process and fell in love with Zoom by coming to my store, which I'm very proud of. But I also take some ownership of, which is why I'm going to South Tampa tomorrow. But I'm like, okay, this person got a store and they're having a little bit difficult, and I want to help them with that. So it's really do the math, like the item 19 that's in the FDD. You want to really, parse that. Just remember that the FDD is designed to put the franchise's best foot forward and they're just kind of trying to sell their value proposition. And so make sure you do your due diligence, try to find out what all that looks like. But at the end of the day, you've got to find something that is needed in your community. There's a lot of like sandwich franchises. I don't know if we need another sandwich franchise. But just make sure that you do your due diligence to find out exactly what they're offering and then what their business plan is, not only now, but if they have any kind of business plans for if the economy changes, whether it's better or.
Right. Definitely good advice there. So you've had your store a couple of years now. I'm sure you've seen, hundreds of dogs come through. What has been the most memorable moment that you have working with all the dogs that have come through?
Yeah. So when I think back, so to give you guys an idea of like how many dogs we see, we execute between the 2 stores over 200 visits a week. So the amount of dog training hours I think my 2 stores have done is probably approaching 40,000 hours of dog training. So we see a lot of dogs. The ones that stick with me the most are the really scared dogs that we have built their self-confidence. So you see like overexcited dogs, you see really obedient dogs. Well, we often forget about the dogs that are like just nervous about everything. And that's where agility is a big part of our training program, is to give dogs confidence in their own body and start pretty early. But there's a dog that I can think of, his name is Charcoal. And actually the client, her boss gave her the classes because he knew Charcoal and he knew how much Charcoal needed help feeling more comfortable in his body. So I remember their first couple of obedience classes. Charcoal was so nervous. He was behind curtains and just sort of like shaking and so nervous. But one of the great things about agility is it gets the dog comfortable in their own body. It teaches the dog that, hey, I can accomplish certain things. And it really improves the relationship between the human and the dog. So this dog went from being like shaking like a leaf in obedience 1 to being an agility 4 off leash dog. There are other dogs, in the gym with him, like waiting to take their turn. And he's doing the A-frame and the teeter and the curve tunnel and all those different things. And that's really what I think about of some of the impact that we've been able to have as dog trainers at Zero Room, is that dog's quality of life changed in the time that he was with us, right? It went from believing that the world was a scary place to believing that my human has everything under control. I don't need to be scared, and therefore I can be the best possible dog that I can be. And we have lots of those different stories, but Charcoal is one that I definitely think about. And it's been a couple of years since I've seen him, but he's still a dog that I think about almost every day.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing story there, and
Okay.
I'm sure you have hundreds more.
I do.
Just
Yep, I
like
do.
it. And that's just the the benefit of working with animals. I wish I could get
Absolutely.
mine to actually go up and over the A-frame. We have a little dog park here in Urbana, and I've tried to get them up and over, but I can't even
Yeah.
get them up it. So if I was in Florida, I would definitely bring them down to take take a class or two to at least get them up and over that and
Yeah.
to have some fun with them.
No
Um,
worries.
so you mentioned, a bit ago that you did have some challenges, health being one of them. You
Mhm.
started the deal and 3 weeks later, COVID happened. I mean, how did those two things really impact the business and how did you, use your years of experience, as managers and all these other franchises to get yourself through it?
COVID was something that was obviously unprecedented. Like no one really knew how to navigate it. I know I did something called a rollover for business startup, which means I took my IRA 401k retirement money and used that as seed money for my business. So essentially, when I did that, I lost like 20% of my business money in like a week. I was like, oh my gosh, like it's so I liquidated it and kind of had enough money to open Winter Park. Um, as horrible as COVID was for a lot of businesses and for a lot of people, lots of people died and their lives were forever impacted for those that survived. It was actually not a bad time for us to start our business because everyone was on lockdown and people, didn't have anything to do other than take their dog to training. And so, as unfortunate as COVID was, it allowed us to really get our business started on the right foot. From a personal health perspective, I was very lucky in that, so much of what my background is, whether or not, it's dog training or restaurants or iPhones or whatever else it is there's really two ideas, right? Which is hire great people, right? And have a great product. And that was what I think carried me through when I was sick and I couldn't like be in the store for more than an hour before I was in pain or super tired or whatever it may be, is I just had a great team that knew what to do and communicated with each other very effectively and communicated with me. So, I guess I've never really thought about it the way that you just sort of, kind of put it, Brandon, which is in the 4 years that I've had my business, or 5 years, if you think about all the way back to like the founding of it back in January of 2020, is I've had some pretty big obstacles that I was able to overcome, but it wasn't me that overcame them. It was my team that overcame my health issues. And then from my perspective, like getting started in COVID, that was just pure will. Like I was going to make that happen no matter what. And to think that I signed my franchise agreement, I think February 17th, and we opened November 17th in a year that there were several months where nothing was happening because everyone was working from home. No one was doing inspections of buildings or anything else like that. We did so many things remotely and by Zoom and all those other kinds of things. Is that where there's a will, there's a way. And I definitely had a will to get this place open. And then, once it was open, it was really making sure that it was less about me and more about my team and more about the community. And, I'm super proud and thankful for the team that I had at that point that got me to where I am now.
Super glad that everything's worked out for you. I love to hear those kind of stories with all the, devastation that did happen during that time with so many businesses closing up and not being able to reopen.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you were store number 9 for the Winter Park
Mm-hmm.
location. Now there's 77. Where do you see Zoom Room heading in the next few years, both as a brand and with your own locations? Do you plan on opening any more?
Yeah, so I actually have the developmental rights for all of Orlando. So I do own the rights to 2 additional stores. So I have licenses for those with search areas in West Orlando and South Orlando. I know you're not from Orlando, so it might not mean much to you, but essentially the idea would be is I want to be the premier dog training facility in all of Central Florida. Um, I think from a Zoom Room sort of brand perspective, they've been around, I think, since I think like 2012, something like that. So we've been around for about 12 years, even though My store, Winter Park, is kind of early on. At the end of the day, I don't think that the challenges change for us as we move forward. Now, of course, we're going to have to fight against artificial intelligence, and you could probably go on to ChatGPT right now and go, how should I train my dog? Right. And it'll probably could outline a curriculum for you, probably just as good or better than I can. That's just the way of the world. But at the end, what you have to remember about dog training is it's us training the human to train the dog at home. And artificial intelligence, at least not anytime soon, it cannot assess and give feedback and say, hey, Brandon, like you're saying yes too early, right? You are rewarding jump or whatever else it may be. And so I think for us, our business model is secure because our service, the level and the knowledge that we provide cannot be replaced by AI, at least in my lifetime. Hope, maybe I'm a little bit, overconfident about that. But the second thing is that the relationship that humans have with dogs has only become more intimate in the sense that dogs are way more fur babies or, members of the family now than they ever were when I was a kid. I had an inside dog as a kid, but I know a lot of my friends had outside dogs as kids. And I think that it's shocking at this point to know people who have outside dogs, especially in Florida. So I think that's what we continue to see from not only my local stores, but from the brand perspective. It's really growing as a franchise. One thing that I think is important to note is as a new franchise brand, we're working pretty closely as franchisees with the franchisor. I'm co-president of our franchise association, and we're really working hand in hand with our franchisor to work on the things that they need to do to build the brand. Leave the store operations to us, right? We need you to build the brand presence, the marketing support, all those different things. And I think that's what will, carry us moving forward is just a better, delegation of authority about, you manage your side of the business, we manage ours.
No, it sounds great. It looks like you guys are heading in the right direction. In fact, you went from what you said 9 to we have 33 now, or is it 77?
So it's 74 stores I think on the last sheet that I saw. So to go
I
from
don't know where I got 33
to 74. Yeah. Longwood was store number 33. So maybe you picked that up somewhere.
Maybe.
But yeah, to grow almost 10 times, right, in 3 years is pretty big.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal there. So it just goes to show that if there's good operations at the mothership, you shouldn't be afraid to jump into a franchise. And for anybody that's, thinking about starting a business, there's no reason to really try to do it yourself. Never be the one that's a trailblazer because you're the one with arrows in the back, So, hop onto a franchise first off before you can come up with your own concept, right?
Absolutely.
So to kind of bring things to a close, this is going to be the toughest question of the night here. If you could bring any celebrity to a Zoom room class with their dog, who would it be and why?
I really don't know. I'm trying to think. I'm not someone who's really into celebrities or anything else like that. So I'd probably just try to think of somebody that I'm a fan of. And so I'd be hard pressed to think about that. God, that is the hardest question.
Told you it's the hardest question.
It is the hardest question. So, I'm a pretty big, fan of, Star Trek, I guess. And so I probably think about someone like Patrick Stewart or someone coming to a Zoom room class because it would just be fun to have him do Jean-Luc Picard voices with his dogs and be like engage or whatever else it might be and see, maybe that's his recall word for his dog to get him to come back, like engage, and the dog comes running back. I think that would be a lot of fun. But yeah, sorry, I think that might be the most disappointing answer you got from me today.
It's actually a great answer. I mean, huge Star Trek fan.
Oh, good. Okay, there we go.
Definitely a next generation guy.
Yeah, awesome.
Like Voyager as well. But
Voyager is great too. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's it. Well, James, I appreciate
Awesome.
the time. It's been a great show. Thanks for your insights into Zoom room and dog training. It's always been an itch in the back of my mind to do something in the pet industry. So,
Yeah.
um, whether it's a grooming, because I know there's a business for sale here for dog grooming up in my area,
Yeah.
might push me more towards buying it if it's still for sale. Just
Yeah.
got to
Make
figure
sure
out
you
the.
know how to groom. You never know when the
Oh, I
staffing
would keep.
crisis hits.
That's true, but they've been in business a while. They said they got some good groomers there, not
Good.
going anywhere. So
Okay.
we'll see. And as
Well,
far
keep
as
me
Central Florida,
posted.
we'll do. And as far as Central Florida goes, I'll be honest, I miss it dearly.
Yeah.
Um, I'm in the Cowsbury group because I got family in there, and I spent 10 years down there. But
Oh, you realize that? Yeah.
I'm glad to see that everybody made it through the hurricane. I went through Irma
Yeah.
myself down there in Lakeland, and it was definitely rough. And I feel you when it comes to the power deal.
Yeah.
And grew out of power
Absolutely.
for like 10 days or so
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
that.
Same.
But
Yeah. Same thing with us back with Irma and Maria.
well, guys, those listening, appreciate you taking the time to hear James's story and learn a little bit more about franchising and potentially getting into, dog training as a franchise. Definitely check out zoomroom.com for all the latest information. And James's contact information will be in the show notes. So if you can reach out to him with any questions that you may have. And yeah, here's to everybody's success. Thank you for listening.
Great.
Take care and have a great one.
Thanks, Brennan. Take care.